You've drawn attention to this in the past. It speaks for itself how despicable those words from Julian Burnside were. But you've had a response from the Bar Association in Western Australia condemning you for calling this out.
Chris, good afternoon, and it is absolutely extraordinary. That's right, the West Australian Bar Association took issue with me raising deep concerns about this anti-Semitic tweet, and as you've mentioned, Julian Burnside has now apologised for this tweet and deleted it. And yet the WA Bar Association, led by its rather pompous, I have to say, president, Martin Cuerden, has taken issue with me because I have taken this to the Victorian Bar Council and also raised my concerns with the Legal Services Commissioner. That's on the basis that under the barristers' rules, Chris, barristers can't act in a way which brings the legal profession into disrepute. And I really do think that Julian Burnside arguably did do that, though perhaps it's been mitigated now because he has apologised. But I've been absolutely attacked by the WA Bar Association. They are so out of order. They really have missed the mark. And that's why I have called on the president to go. He's really not fit to do this job. He did not in any way raise any concern in his letter to me about the anti-Semitic publication by Mr. Burnside. He was only concerned about Mr. Burnside's free speech. Yeah, so it's really outrageous.
Now, your attack is reasonable because of that horrific Holocaust reference. You're saying perhaps that Burnside shouldn't qualify to be a senior counsel any longer, perhaps should be stripped of that. I want to show some of the letter back from the Western Australian Bar Association, Martin Cuerden, as you say. And as you mentioned in that whole letter, he doesn't condemn Julian Burnside at all. He just attacks you and says your conduct in reporting Mr. Burnside to the Victorian Bar and calling for him to be stripped of certain privileges is a matter of grave concern, as it represents an attack on freedom of speech and is therefore inconsistent with one of the most fundamental of these values. It is bizarre, it's topsy-turvy world, but now you're not taking a step back. You reckon he should resign now?
Well, absolutely. And what the WA Bar Association seems to be suggesting is that barristers should be above the law. Barristers must comply with the law. There are very strict rules in relation to barristers' conduct. And of course, to be a QC is to be very eminent and a highly recognised position in the legal fraternity. So it is absolutely extraordinary. And I'm so pleased to see today Mark Liebler has written a letter to Mr. Cuerden very strongly objecting to the stance that the WA Bar Association has taken, calling on him to apologise and pointing out that really the conduct of the association is pretty reprehensible.
Indeed, Mark Liebler being a very eminent Australian, very senior in legal circles and a very prominent member of the Australian Jewish community too. So good on you for taking up this fight, Sarah, because as we see, it's getting pretty willing. Just before I let you go, though, as a strong advocate for regional Victoria, your thoughts on the lockdown for 4 days that always looked unnecessary and was lifted, of course, at midnight last night?
Well, Chris, in my view, it was absolutely unnecessary. I think Daniel Andrews has become far too trigger-happy. He said very clearly when he came back from his injury that we had to open up Victoria after seeing the horrific damage that has occurred here in regional Victoria and in metropolitan Melbourne. And without any current cases in the community right across regional Victoria, he decided to shut down the entire economy. And now he announced a 7-day lockdown. And then a few days later, within, again, a number of hours' notice, we've been reopened. This absolute rollercoaster ride that we are on in not just regional Victoria, but in all parts of Australia, of course, when there are no cases, is very, very traumatising, particularly for businesses in the events industry, in hospitality, in tourism, and in many other sectors which are affected. So I would say to Daniel Andrews, please do this as an absolute last resort. And it is quite clear, Chris, that this lockdown in regional Victoria was totally unnecessary.